Hello, everybody. I thank you for coming here on this virtual thing. And it's kind of complicated because we have Latin America and North America together with us. And I think for them, it's early afternoon. And what's now in South America? So people will talk. And this time, the first person who is going to talk for us is going to talk about, they have all received some questions. The first question is in your area, do community psychology act more like activists to change the world, act more like professional to help people and communities, or they are mostly researcher, or all three of us, and in which way do you think you're going? And so he's going to answer this question about Brazil. And then we'll have Yvette, because we've seen Yvette is here. So Yvette, prepare yourself for afterwards, okay?
Hi everyone. Yeah, I think you hear me. Then I have 3 minutes. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I will try to answer which roles are community psychologists play in different areas of our planet. And I'm from Brazil. I'm James Moura. I'm professor at University for International Integration of the Afro-Brazilian Lusophony. In Brazil, first of all, we are a colonized country. I don't believe in this planetary roundtable because we divided in different worlds. I think we have a world that are part of the global south, and this is another world that are part of the global north. And today we have a president that is a genocide. We live in a country with so much violence, death, discrimination, and when I think about community psychology and which roles are the community psychologists in Brazil, we have a basis that is located in the Paulo Freire perspectives. I'm located in a region in Brazil that is in Northwest. It's the same region that Paulo Freire created his pedagogy, his popular pedagogy, and the community psychology is embedded in this perspective. And then when you think about this and these roles, we are activists, scholars, professors, and psychologists. The idea is that when we are doing our action in the society, we have these foundations of our society that is based in the colonialism, and the people that are in situation of poverty, the majority of them are black people, are like the women that are situated in the margins of the cities, and the community psychology that was created in 1962. This was created in the moment that Brazil lived in a dictatorship. Then we have a community psychology that have this emphasis to question the social structure of the society and how this structure of society impact of the lives of the people that are in a situation of poverty. And then we don't work without these relations with the individual macro level, the individual with the macro level of the structure of the society. And then thanks so much for this question.
Can't hear you.
That microphone doesn't, we can't hear it.
I can hear you now, yes. Would you like me to begin? I'm not hearing you, Katerina. Would you like me to begin?
Ma lei deve parlare, non io. Okay, Yvette, you should be speaking now.
Okay.
Can you speak?
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to join you. And in the United States, community psychology and its practice depends on location and depends on the community psychologist. Depends often on where we work. And you probably know a lot about the history of community psychology, since the United States tends to center itself as if it were the only country in the world. I will speak primarily from my perspective as a Latina immigrant working in a dominant institution within the United States that does not have a community psychology program within the field of psychology. My university, the community psychologists who work there, we are all located in other departments and carve out our work with and in communities based on our own positionality. Personally, I work with immigrant populations, particularly farm workers, co-creating with them services that are not readily available. We have tremendous health, mental health, and educational disparities affecting immigrant populations, Latinas, Latinos, Latinx in particular. And in collaboration with colleagues from other departments, from my own department, we work in communities addressing, for example, overweight and obesity, addressing underrepresentation in public policy, limited access to healthcare services. As scholars, my goal as a professor has been to train the next generation of students with the vision of serving as we create research and as we teach. In sum, I would like to reiterate that there is a great push, particularly among emerging scholars, that the field of community psychology, as all other fields, need to be decolonized, that the voices that have been erased in the history of the field need to be brought up, because many of us have been doing and not writing about what we're doing. Consequently, there's a whole body of work that has been done in community psychology since the 1960s by professors, academics, practitioners of color, stories which are not recorded because we were busy doing and not writing about it. And part of what I feel the work of the next generation is to really uncover those stories and share that wisdom that we'll talk about later with emerging scholars and with future graduate students. Thank you.
Can confirm, since I was there as a graduate student in 1970, that in America already there were radicals that said that psychologists were accomplices of the mental health oppression. And they were, in my first book, I talked about I was trained in mainstream, but there was this other part, okay? So I think it's important to remember that Yvette, this year, which has been a SCRA, she has been practically revolutionizing, and you won't have the chance to talk so badly about United States as much. And I'll give you another chance tomorrow not to talk so bad about Europe either. Because what is interesting about community psychology, we hear it now from Regal, from next moment, is that in each different part of the world, a subject like community psychology, for its own interior ideas, has to focus on seeing better than others what the problems are of the particular area. And therefore, we can demonstrate today that we are developing different kinds of community psychology, which I think exactly is the strength of community psychology. So I'm anxious to hear what Uruguay has done that's particularly, and I would like to.
Sorry, someone here is going to the San Carlo this evening and need the ticket. If you come and take it. Come a moment and take it.
Okay. Okay. Last year we had a pizza, today we have San Carlo. Don't get it.
And then if you want to have tickets for tomorrow evening with the bus and the performance for our social event, please go outside and when the section is finished and inscribe yourself for doing it.
she has just confirmed that, as you see, Naples a particular territory for amusement and for having fun, because they have also lots of problems. So they react in a very nice way, inventing as much as possible occasion for, look, she's looking at me, but she's my old student.
Saying something naughty, I guess.
So anyway, that's exactly why she had all those nice photos of Naples to lure you here, because, no, it's very important. Well-being requires a certain amount of happiness, joy, and laughter to be actually well-being. And in Naples, one of the precious things of Naples is they cultivate the beauty of food, the beauty natural, they already have it, but they also, as you will see, she organized a whole bunch of stuff for us to do things together to have a good time. And I know that if you're thinking in terms of revolutionizing, you know, the terrible stuff the world is in, obviously this seems not important, but it is important for our health and for becoming and sharing a sense of planetary sense of community, the humanness of it. And this is what's so good, it's what Naples can survive, because they have such spirit of trying to find the good among the bad and inventing the good, the fantasy. Okay, so excuse me, I had, as you see, an interruption. So now we give, and if you tell them what you, why you wanted so much to be here.
This one works?
Because next year, this one works if I turn this off.
Okay, you can hear me from the Zoom?
Yvette, can you hear him?
Sí.
Okay. The first question, it wasn't so easy to. None of them are easy, as you will see. But if I had to think about the contributions that community psychology can make in this particular moment of the world, I have to do it in a situated way, in a located way, because I think where my teammates work, where my production is made, where all my knowledge and all my academic production is in place. So there is no way to answer this question in an abstract or generic or general way. So for me, or for the experience that we have in Uruguay, community psychology is bounded with a political, ethical posture about psychology and the role that it has to have in the changing, in changing in terms of community action. So we think that our practice from the early 70s and so on is being bonded and being produced with this, how do you say, encuadre, is this from this epistemological perspective of change and transformation, community transformation. So the action and the praxis of community psychologists has to, it has importance to think about the role that we're playing in the communities that we are interacting with. Our epistemological, ethical, and political perspectives are our way of interventing. Is our way of promoting change or promoting questions and reflections. So.
Can you give some example of how you do that?
Yes, I work with a team in a neighborhood from Montevideo that is called Flor de Maroñas. And the way we make bonds with commissions, with inhabitants from that hood. We try to make bonds to elaborate and create collective spaces to think about the conditions of existence that they have and the problems that they have, the ways and solutions they can have, and the strength or the proposal we bring to that space is questions or allow to talk, to make conversation and promote certain reflections in a way that the answers or the responses that these people give are a way of their own. You know, the community psychology as a way to make questions and produce collective announcements, something like that. So we don't try to we don't make PowerPoints. We don't try to explain things to them, or we don't stand from a point in which we have the knowledge and they don't. So community psychology is very linked to a political perspective, an ethical perspective of co-producing knowledge, and the fundamental actor is the community. We work with them. They have their own rhythm and pace, and we respect that. That is more like I maybe talked over time.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to have Alba here from Brado. I'd like to have you. Okay, you can translate for her, yes.
She was saying things to me.
You do simultaneous translation.
Yes, this is simultaneous translation.
That's why I was trained in simultaneous translation when I was 18, yes.
I'm not trained in, but yes, we're going to try our best. Mhm. Mhm. She doesn't want to talk only about her personal experience. She just wants to represent the general vision of the community psychologists in Chile. Mhm. She says that the community psychology in Chile isn't equal, is varied, is mixed. Mhm. It has been linked to the public policies with vulnerable groups in the communities. Mhm. Even we have difference, there is a shared vision, a methodological vision that we share in our work. Mhm. That their main center of this kind of intervention is to, what do you say? Okay, to empower people in vulnerable situations. Mhm. It's difficult to work with so close to public policies. They have a lot of difficult working there. Because even the public policies work to make better in improve the social network and social capital. Mhm. So even because of that, they limit the participation of the people, and they.
Excuse me, they pretend to want the participation, but they don't really want it.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
I think that yes, they try to make the people to participate, but it's really limited, and it's not general to all the people.
So I ask him the same question I asked him. Can you tell me a project that you think has been successful on your terms?
¿Algún proyecto que haya sido exitoso en estos términos? Ujú. We are right now working in research in different neighborhood of our city, that is Temuco in Chile, and we are working with participatory investigation action. So we try to. We have been with good results. We have. But with really a slow process, because the communities has, I think, that a mindset that has been built in a neoliberal way of thinking.
So they are slower than you would like them to participate. They're slower.
Yes.
Okay, that's exactly what happens in each country. It happens in the bad neighborhoods of Italy. It happens when I work with people who have suffering. It's a condition that human beings who have been oppressed have interiorized. And so that's why I was trying to figure out. I'm very curious about how you help, because it's true that there is inner knowledge in communities, but this inner knowledge is both good and bad. Some inner knowledge is full of rage, is full of regrets, and so depression sometimes is full of apathy, hopelessness. Okay, so to get participation in a very positive way that they can think about the future, we have to work in different ways, but they're very similar. What I'm struck up to now, I won't take it tomorrow, Asia, but is actually we are doing different ways, the same thing, except we call it, in Italy, we call it sometimes clinical community psychology, sometimes we call it social psychology, and we have a radical role only when we think about, today I'm here, I'm a Friday for Future activist, and we are doing the strike on Friday in 70 Italian towns, and I feel very ambivalent about being here and following my role and not being there like every year I've been, and every week I've been. My husband and I are both grandparents for Fridays, because that's my pet project, because I think desperately we need to become aware that in psychology we never were ecological. We talk about ecology of the mind. We ignore a big part of the ecology, which were the other living human beings, okay? And tomorrow I hope to convince some of the male I meet in a meeting that we need to decolonize the European mind of many alpha males, but also alpha males of Chinese and other places, Russia, obviously, because it's one of the important results of the European and American domination of the world, which still is going on through mass media. So we have to look also at mass media, not just community. The world, and that's why I'm so curious that I invented this stuff, to make everybody talk. because I want to see if we can build bridges. See, I think we need desperately to build bridges and to take all the expertise and say, okay, but we are dealing with, when you describe, when you describe the theory, when David Fry describes his theory, he's a very good friend of mine. I've been together with him 40 years. Sometimes he gets so angry, and I say, well, we are so angry. From the anger, when do we get? And there's a difference, male, female, sometimes. But when I say, he doesn't do any project, he thinks all the time. And that's very interesting, but it's terribly male-oriented, theory-oriented. Well, me, I'm just the opposite, being a female. I say, how can I get something? And that's why I apologize for asking also a question, but I understand more when you explain to me what you're doing. That's why I ask you, okay? Because I think action builds knowledge. And we have to respect the knowledge that comes from our action. And instead of just always being saying, oh, we are different, we are the best one here, we are the best one there, how can we learn from each other? That's okay, in the spirit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, you remain here, and after I end, you speak for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You were chosen because you are young, like like Anne was chosen because she has done a very interesting work, because I have the responsibility of why these people are here or not, because she is talking about sense of community. She has worked on sense of community, which is one important thing that the Northern America have come up with.
So Donata just got done saying I'm here because I'm old. So thank you. Okay? Okay. I have 3 minutes.
Representing Northern.
So, like everyone else, I am here to present a version of what a psychologist in the US thinks about all of this. So, I should take this off. I'm also representing COVID fears, evidently. So I think that the answer to the question, what are community psychologists doing in the US, is really varied, as Yvette said. It depends on setting, it depends on context, on training, on generation, on all sorts of intersectional factors. I think that in the US, we are trained in all three, but you would have to be really someone who needs no sleep to do all three equally well. And so people do different parts of the jobs community psychologists can do, I think, at different points in their careers, at different settings where they're involved, in different projects. And so I think everyone is creating a very unique balance of the three. And it also has to do with person-environmental fits, right? Because certain settings will enable certain actions and really make it possible. Other ones will thwart them regardless of what an individual community psychologist might like to do. I think the generational impact is an important one, and here I kind of segue into the next question, but I think they're related in that originally, community psychologists were trained to be academics, and there were positions to be had. I think as we've moved away from having positions, the younger generation of psychologists, of community psychologists, have wanted something different than what the field might be presenting. So there's a change in expectations. There's also a change in the ways that a lot of the academic structure and presentation of materials is seen, and so a lot of our students, I think, see it as quite archaic and as a very slow, methodical process that gets in the way of change. But it creates a very painful bind, I think, because to be labeled a community psychologist, someone is going through a PhD program, which is a research endeavor, which has certain time-honored requirements which operate for good and for evil, right? And so that kind of slow, scientific, peer review, critical, but critical in the sense of generative criticism, not in the sense of critical of the everything going on, I think is very hard sometimes to balance with an activist, community-centered, very much grounded approach to things. And so I think we'll continue that part of the discussion in the next question. But I just really see that being an issue, and also that our social contracts have frayed so, and the social conversation around issues is that you can't criticize in a generative way oftentimes, because we're so at loggerheads that it makes it difficult to have those discussions across difference that are really important to the scientific method. So.
Thank you.
Okay, about the second question of intergenerational exchange. For me, I'm doing my master's degree on social psychology, and everything I learned about it obviously the courses are very important, the signatures and everything like that, but the field experience and the working in some territories are the true way that, for me, the intergenerational exchange embodies. I, I mean, it's like the experience are living aulas and living classrooms. No? The experience with some organizations, doing some activities. I've learned more about community psychology, talking with neighbors from participating in an experience than in a classroom that, or a Zoom class of 3 hours long. So for me, formation has always been an effective and embodied process, not only a discussion in a classroom or learning about theories or social theories or psychosocial history or the history of the field of work, but instead I've met that seeing the persons with most trajectory intervene, seeing their approach, seeing the way that they ask questions, seeing the openness that they have, has formed me, has an important role in my formation, because community psychology is pretty much about affection, about being affected but by the things that are going on. So seeing the disposal that people has lets me learn about and seeing also, because not everyone in social psychology or in psychology, the most experienced ones, not all of them are humble or they have they care about your learning. No, but some professionals, some colleagues, some that have a disposal for horizontal work, for allowing questions, for allowing the involvement of everyone, no matter if it's a degree student, if he just came to the university, if he's a master's degree, if he's studying, if he has a PhD. No, it's the horizontal disposal of a team of work, of approaching a field, approaching a space, approaching a territory, an organization. No one has necessary. Obviously, there are differences in knowledge, but the differences in knowledge are not an excuse for symbolic violence or something like that. For me, that is my process of formation, and the way I see intergenerational exchange. It's like humility, listening, actively listening, questions, no, opening.
If I understood you well, you receive them more in action than at just at university,
Yes,
correct?
yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yvette, do you want to say something on this? Huh? Yvette? Yvette, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, can
I
you talk a little bit about intergenerational, because you are in between and you got to the top of the SCRA, so you can tell us some stories. How did you get us to the top of the SCRA? Which, you changed it quite a bit. I can witness.
The quick answer to that question is I have no idea. I think part of it is longevity, and I very much appreciate all that has been said. And I think as an elder, quite elder in the field and in my profession and on my campus, there are two things that I'm concerned about. One is ensuring that the emerging leaders, emerging scholars have at least some foundation of core values of community psychology and foregrounding concerns about social justice, which are very critical in the world right now, as I see it. And that part of the training, the education at all levels, from undergraduate to postgraduate, really is finding as has been said, that humility, that compassion, that curiosity about what communities need, dialoguing with communities in order to identify what they perceive to be their needs, and to see what in our skill set we can offer to co-create responses to world problems, to problems in their communities. And this is something that myself and others in my department foreground in our teaching of undergraduates, who for the most part are first generation students, many of them from underrepresented groups, many of them children of asylum seekers and immigrants from all parts of the world. And for them to understand their place in the world and how they can co-create with communities responses, whether they go work in the public sector, whether they continue in education. Many of our students go on to teach, to law school, to medicine, psychology, graduate degrees. And so we provide that foundation. At the same time, I see emerging scholars challenging just about everything that community psychology has put forth. I think this is very healthy. I think it's very important to maintain an intergenerational dialogue, and for younger scholars not to discard the wisdom of the elders, which I hear from some of my senior colleagues in the Society for Community Research and Action, that sometimes they're hesitant to engage, particularly with younger scholars of color, because they've been cast as dinosaurs and racist. And I think we need to communicate. We need to continue to engage in dialogue because we're all learning. Not all of us are woke, and many of us want to get there, but we need the support of the vision of emerging scholars, and we need to offer the wisdom that we have, not necessarily to be followed, but to be considered. Thank you.
I said everybody can have an opinion, even if you're not the same age or not. I mean, you can have.
Okay, thank you. Then I think in Brazil happens a kind of waves in community psychology, and think about intergeneration because we have our foundations as community psychologists that were created with some professors in different parts of Brazil that have the class as a principal mark of our action, working with people in situation of poverty. But because of the new social policies that were created in 2003, the community psychologists are part of the basic team in our national health system, and we have a kind of national health social service. Then we have centers of health and centers of social services that are located in all 5,000 cities in Brazil, and each city has many of the centers, and the psychologists and the community psychologists are the principal workers. Yeah, should be. They must be. They must be. Yeah, but yes, not true. Yeah, because of the training, and but because of these jobs and possibilities of working, the community psychologists seen as an important ally or discipline in psychology. And because of this effort of the social policy, we perceive that community psychology has an interest of the young psychologists, because community psychology serves different methods, techniques, and backgrounds for working in these territories. And these young community psychology brings a more intersectional framework, because the majority of them are feminists, anti-racist. Then, yeah, yeah.
The younger people in Italy too have tatuaggi.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call this in English?
Yeah, tattoo, yeah.
And that's a visible sign.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, and
Brazil is very special for this, because massages and this, nobody, the work and beat. It's interesting, because they vie with Naples in finding ways to have fun.
mm-hmm, yeah,
They have the Baker's Carnival, in the
Yes,
world.
and I love Carnival.
Which I admire. I was there
But,
several
yeah.
times to see, but because it is a very participatory carnival.
Yeah.
The same one we have in Italy, in certain places where people prepare all year like them, just for the 4 or 5 days.
Yes.
Venice is a beautiful city of Italy, as you all know, but has a tradition of 500 years of carnival, which was not just carnival, it was just a very important. In Venice, in the carnival, all the social classes were turned off. Anybody can do, and they were horizontal for the first week of the carnival, which is interesting. It's so the two, that together this goes. Okay, sorry, I go on this. I would like Anne's opinion. Oh, you want you first? Yeah.
Hi. The question about intergenerational exchange.
Concerns most.
Yeah.
You're still in it.
I recently been chosen for being young, so I don't know what is going to be of me when I get older. So I think we are trying our best to work in an intergenerational way, of course, in our department. Thanks to Alba and thanks to all our teachers and boss, to me, our college. Because I think they are like making our way or helping us to find our way. As young people, we often have really like magical ideas, ideals, and we think about utopias. Of course, in Chile, we are like very revolutionary young people. We always want the best. We want to change everything. So we have a lot of ideas, a lot of energy, but it's important to have a mentor, people who will help us to find a way that is grounded to make the thing possible. We often have a lot of magnificent ideas, but it's not really possible in the country we live and the society we live in, the world we live right now. So they help us to find like methodological ways, and we can put all our energy on that. We can find new ideas to transform this basis to that theoretical basis, and we can make like new ways to do the classical ways. I think that's really important, and I think that it's made thanks to made teams of research or of working that has people with long trajectories and young people that will learn about that kind of trajectories, and they will someday make the same thing. Someday they will help to younger ones to know, to absorb their knowledge. That is the only way that we can learn is in the field, in the making. But it's important to not be alone, I think. That is the role that mentors have, that college have. Not only in a mentor way, that is important. I think that is really essential that the relationship has like peer-to-peer, not the professors here and the student here. Like in the same way we profess the community psychology, like subject to subject. It's really nice to speak with someone like in the way you speak like the peers of your age, and they will help you like you has all the knowledge necessarily, but you need like that kind of help to do the things better.
Thank you. Now I think the two of you have to speak about it, no?
Yeah, I think that we have really similar ideas, but if you want to complement something, yes, yeah. Okay.
Anne can talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
So since Donata made us write something down, I brought it up because I will never recreate what it is I wrote down. So when I think the intergenerational exchange is incredibly important. I think it's why so many of us who are at this conference became community psychologists, and I think that it's through the intergenerational exchange and what we learned, what we learned along the way, the people who took us under their wings are the reason why we became community psychologists, and I think so then the urge to do that for other people is a lot of what motivates people in the field, because we're a small field, so we have to continue to encourage and bring new people into it. So I think, again, thinking from a U.S. perspective and from a U.S. university-based perspective, what I try and figure out is, can the academy change fast enough for the next generation, who, as I said, really is critical of it in a way that I don't think, I mean, each generation of community psychologists has been critical, and each generation, I think, has thought that the one before wasn't critical enough, but I actually think that the critical nature of the current generation is perhaps stronger because it's against the field instead of against the world outside, or against both. I shouldn't say instead, but it's a both and. So can it change fast enough? Should the academy throw out everything that undergirds its history because of the horrors that were done within it, and it has a history of both? And that sort of makes me wonder how, as an intergenerational group, we can fix what is broken, rebuke and correct for prior sins, shine what's tarnished, but also allow the grace and forgiveness to keep the parts that are still useful today. And I think it's a conversation that we're sort of in the midst of, and I'm not sure what the answer is. So that's my thoughts.
And I think it's very important what Anne said, because I want to remind, since I am a European, I want to remember that Europe produced a lot of bad things, but also the best music, classical music. A country like Italy, you can go around and admire the art, okay? So it's interesting. Tomorrow I'll try to explain more why the Europeans behave like this, because they were also trained literary and religiously to become heroes. And so for the male Europeans were very much pushed to be like they thought of themselves as heroes that had to go and give what it was their superior civilization. And they believed in it with all the naivety that we now believe in other things. And so I think there is some time for reproaching, like the Jewish problem. In Italy, there has been lots of people who have asked forgiveness. But forgiveness means also that afterwards we are now facing the problem we face today and building a common future, because otherwise resentment, if you all had a love affair, you know very well that if you just don't forgive and forget, you will never have a good divorce. Because if you keep having resentment and hate for the person that you left, you're never going to be able to raise those children well, because you have forgotten why you chose the papa of your children. You know, one of the things I study, because I happen to be a graduate student, and one of my students was killed by her partner. They came from Chicago to Boston to kill her. I was only 27, and it was my first therapy. So I was very upset, and I swear I don't know enough, but when I know enough, I write a book to help couples live without killing it. And this is still I'm still selling. I did the book when I was 30 years later, after much research, but I still think that the book is necessary in Italy now, because we still have, every 3 days, a man kills a woman that wants to leave him. Okay, so we have to explore more, the psyche of men, not all men, but certain kind of men, and help them also. See, sometimes the warriors are victims. In fact, they die much more than we do, even. So agree with you, Anne, and I thank you for the courage to say that, because it takes courage. And for me, that I'm still kind of old and I'm going away, I have the courage, you know, of people who are very free. But Anne is very young still, and she is at the university still, and she has to deal with students who tell, you know, I can imagine how much fun it is now to teach in an American university and having black students, feminist students, everyone complaining, and all the groups complaining about you. You represent the authority, and actually it's not true. In America, universities have lost lots of power, the professor, because most of them are untenured, and most of them work in a condition very difficult as before. So actually, getting on the professor is not the best thing. Again, the power is not there. The power is in the military and in the politician and in the very rich people, okay? Which is one of the big changes of the world. And we have to face that now. We have to take community values and apply them to very complex problems. And now we go on the third subject. What do we want for the future? We have about 15 minutes, 20 minutes to deal with this.
No, but I wanted to say that if my comments are misconstrued, I was not talking at all about intersectionalities within generational differences. I'm talking across all. I think that it doesn't matter what background of the newer generation is. I think everyone is pressing for social change. And not all of it even is social change that those of us who are more progressive would think is positive social change. I mean, if you look at, there's a young movement in the US and around in Italy, et cetera, that are pressing for social change as well, that reject the most current old in favor of some archaic notion of what was the good old days. So I wasn't, it's not just the pressure of any group or has anything to do with my identity or similarities and differences. I think it has to do with cohorts as well. So.
Okay. So anyway, you can stay
Oh,
here
I
and
can
work.
stay?
Since you're here, you can start the conversation on the last subject, which is what can we do to improve community psychology for the world? Do we want what last night they said about, you know, the having a peer away from home, helping them? They suggested two of the ideas mainly. One was a network of community psychology worldwide. You know, they called it the planetary network of community psychologists. And the other one was instead for the generation to help to increase the width of the training, so that you are not only trained by a person that knows you very well in a certain university, but you have also another mentor from somewhere else who gives different ideas, who gives different opinion, and so widens you. That's also a nice idea they had. So I'm repeating and for this group, and you can tell what you want, okay? Yeah. They're recording, so.
Well, it makes me think that we should do, in the US, there's a junior year abroad notion. Maybe we should have a third year abroad exchange for all community psychology students and faculty as well. So I think that, you know, there's wisdom everywhere, and it's trying to figure out how do we learn from it, how do we do a proper exchange, how are we really listening? And I worry sometimes that there's a lot of discussion among community psychologists who are PhDs, right? We're elites. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Once you have a PhD, you're like 1% of the world population, and in many countries, very, very small percent. And are we being authentic in our humbleness? Because if we truly believe that communities have the knowledge and the power, why did we get a PhD? Because somewhere in the back of our mind, we think there's some power, something it will get us, or knowledge. And so I wonder if people see through us when we show up to the table saying, I'm just interested in what you think, I'm just here to help. And are we really recognizing our standpoint, and are we being reflexive in that approach? It is another thought that comes to mind. But you know, from my experience and my theoretical background, I just think about micro-communities and macro-communities, and I think about micro-belonging and macro-belonging and Weisenfeld's work from '96. And so how do we create a macro-community sense of identity and belonging among community psychology-minded people that both has a collective that feels a part of something bigger, but also allows for all of the micro-communities that make us who we are and that are so important to the knowledge that each locale has. And by locale, I don't just mean geographic, but all identities and cultures and social senses of belonging. And so we create this sense of we-ness that's whole, that also respects and models agreements and disagreements and conversation and all of these micro-communities as well. And so I can be both a US-based academic community psychologist, and I can be a member of the world community of community psychologies, and I can be interested in this, and I can have my personal identities of that, and all of that can come together. So there I managed to bring sense of community into it, and with that, I turn it over to my younger colleagues.
Yeah, we can just go in line, and then we give the word to Yvette as well. You come first, yeah. Because the future is mostly for you, see?
Yeah, talking about building networks.
Including what she just said.
Okay.
A third year, abroad.
Okay, I think it's really important and necessary that we can build networks around the world. Not only because we can find mentors in other countries, just for the way we can share our experience. I think that it's really difficult to imagine the different contexts on different backgrounds we have all around the world. I think even with the really close neighbors like Uruguay or Brazil, I can imagine the realities that you work in, that you live in, and maybe it's difficult for you too to imagine what we live in Chile. And even it's more difficult for people to live in Europe or North America to imagine the places we live, the communities that we live, the governments that we work with. So it's really important to find this network. We can help each other to find new tools. I think we can share the tools that we have, the research that we have been working on, and the new ways that we have been found this time. In these years of working in these little countries, for a way of saying, but with a lot of will to make the world a better place, make our countries a better place. So it's really important that we can talk with people in other countries. I think that we can adapt some of the ways we work, so we will make it work in other places that have.
Would you like to have a mentor in another country beside the one you have?
Yeah, I think it will be definitely very fun, very refreshing. It will be a nice experience, but not only in the mentor way. I think that we can share as colleagues, like young colleagues. We can share a lot of wisdom or a lot of experience in the field. Maybe we don't have a really long trajectory, but maybe we have a point of view of the society that is new. We want new things for the future. We can share that point of view. We can understand what are the similarities with what are our differences. And maybe with that, we can share with our mentors that understand what we can do, what really we can do.
Yeah, the mentor-mentee has never been a relationship in which a mentor just gives you water as mentee. It's an exchange.
Yes.
They've always recognized, even from the time of the Greek, they recognize that, Plato is the one invited dialogue with his students. And I will remember that there are actually two traditions in Europe. One is the Greek tradition of dialogue and the Jewish tradition of examining things everywhere, no? And the other one is the Jesuit way, that is the hierarchical way in which you sit in a chair, or we're here, sit in a chair because I know more than you and I fill you with knowledge. So this is very interesting because this kind of the way of teaching, you know, that's why I like so much things online, because you can be collaborative learning, much more easy. And you can break down this traditional, but the Catholic Church has started there actually very well, because they were trying to form priests. So they had to teach certain things to priests, so they could do the things that clearly, like, you know, the Catholic Church is 2,000 years old. It's the one biggest organization of the world that's still around, because they were very good in transmitting exactly, and in fact this Pope is trying, he comes from Argentina, so he's trying to make a real big renewal, transformative thing, and he's having some problem because he's doing it too fast, no? And for some people too slow. So poor thing, is it on both sides. But the mentor-mentee is one tradition that has two different things. One is, we have to remember that in Europe we always had tradition that brought one way and tradition that brought the other. And you can pick from Europe and America their best part and just, you know, fight the bad part, which being in the world have been more widespread now, the bad part of America. For instance, the young people in my research have become more individualistic in general, because they really bought the thing of the American dream. You know, I study and I do, and it's for me, and it's so the we is very difficult to produce now, more than years ago. For instance, under Mussolini, it was not a good we, but they kept saying we all the time. He kept saying, he put them in groups from 4-year-olds, you know, he kept saying, you are this, like the others. So he was teaching the we. We don't teach the we at all. We teach, and in this we became American because of the mass media, Hollywood movies, all kinds of media stuff. No? So that's one thing that I think in the future community psychology should study more. I'm beginning to study online communities because most of the people I know spend that from 2 to 6 hours a day on the telefonino. You know, and most of your life are photographed in those telefoninis. So it's interesting, you know, it's like the media play a real big role in our life now, more than before. And that even so more in the communities where you don't have much to do except the telefonino. So that's one thing that I hope the young people will study more, because it's very important. So the two of you, and you want to say something about this, no?
Porque es una manera de ser, hacer y estar en el mundo, que con una inspiración transformadora no olvida que tiene que ser camaleónica para estar en distintos niveles y estar en distintos temas también.
She says that community psychology is the psychology of today, that it says that we have to be, that we have to think, and we have to be situated in the world in a certain way. So that is really, no sé, me perdí la idea. Como,
Darse de que tiene este sentido transformador es al mismo tiempo muy camaleónica para estar en distintos escenarios.
Okay. And with no forgetting that community psychology has that capacity to change, to transform, that they can be like a chameleon. I don't know how to say chameleon in English. Huh? Chameleon way. Like a chameleon. Community psychologists can be that way. That is really important to young people too. I think that is the psychology of young people right now. We share a lot of values and ideas with the basis of the community psychology. I think that we can do.
We have 5 more minutes before we are kicked off, because we're an hour and a half. So the two of you and Yvette will share very quickly about about all the proposals they made, especially you, because next year you'll have to deal with them, the proposal.
2024 in Uruguay, next conference in Uruguay. For me, the challenge or a part of the challenge in this world today is constructing common places, common activities, common products, common shared utilities. And for me, I think all the things that we are saying are different ways of saying that we need to bond together and to promote in the construction of our discipline the same things that we like to promote in communities, common spaces,
That's
creativity.
We are looking what common spaces to do.
Okay, and
What's your idea
yes,
for common spaces?
common spaces as my idea for common spaces. This maybe, I don't know, finding each other
They gave
face to
3 or 4.
face.
Which one struck you?
For me, the things that they were saying about the importance of community psychology for young people, that it can be a renewal, or young people can be a renewal for community psychology, and community psychology can be a change of identity and a way of understanding some values of transformation for young people. I think that can be pretty interesting to think.
But this has been what they do all the time if they work the relationship. Here they gave you 3, 4 different proposals. Anne proposed to make a junior year abroad. That means, like you go live and we make exchanges among us. And other people say, let's make just kind of informal network, planetary network. And the other ones say, it's more like having a mentor somewhere.
Let's make a young people of community psychology network.
You want to separate, it's interesting. He wants to separate the community psychology of young people. That's a good idea. That's a 4th idea. You have to present all 4 ideas, write them down, all the 4, because you are Uruguay. Next year you're doing it. So remember, the 4 have all to be presented, not only the one you like, okay? So tell to Caterina to give you the thing, because we have 4 ideas, and tomorrow we'll have the Asian people, so we'll see what they come up with. Anybody wants to finish? It's a very nice conversation we're having. Yvette, do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you so much. This is such a rich conversation. And I would add, in addition to the junior year abroad, the other wonderful suggestions that have been made, that for individuals who plan to work in communities, that they should learn about the communities they plan to enter. So this is a promotional statement for undergrads and graduate students to really pursue ethnic studies, African studies, Asian American studies, and Native American studies, Chicano, Latino studies, etc. I find that when students are able to integrate their own lived experience, as well as the basic foundational understanding of community psychology and ethnic studies, we are much more able to join communities with humility, with kindness, with compassion. And I think this is really critical, particularly if we are not from those communities. One of the things that I've been doing since I was 18 years old as an undergraduate, even though I'm Latina, I'm not Mexican origin. So I took Chicano studies courses. I learned the ways in which immigrant Mexican families like to connect in order to be able to be in the field for my school projects and so forth, and later in the activist and volunteer and research work that I have done. I do think that intergenerationally, we need to listen to each other. Because I teach primarily
I
undergraduate,
have to
all of
stop
my
you here
research.
because we have to still see if he wants to add something. Do you want to
Okay,
add something? Very quickly, because we are all going to the San Carlo I got the ticket for the San Carlo. Caterina is going to kill me. Caterina is going to kill me if I don't go. So would you?
Yeah, you guys can keep talking. I'm done.
You're done? Okay. Thank you very much for all your ideas. And thank you all, because I think we had a very interesting conversation. And I'm happy that there was some dialogue. Thank you.